So, I bet y'all motherfuckers are wondering what my top 10 movies of the year are. The year ended a few weeks ago and everyone else already has all their top 10 up, but I couldn't wrap it all up before 2017 ended. Sorry, but there you go. Let's get right into the list, shall we? Starting with number 10, Okja. Or Okja. No, it's Okja. Okja. This was a bit of a sleeper hit, I think. It didn't end up on too many people's top 10 lists, but for me, I think it earned its place. The filmmaker, Bong Joon-ho, has a good track record of making very solid cinema. This movie is basically what happens when you mix something adorable like My Neighbor Totoro that involves like a big cuddly creature and a young child accompanying it, mixed with animal abuse and genocide symbolism. So, not exactly the most natural combo, but it clicked together pretty well. It tugged on the heartstrings because Okja is a big cuddly critter and it approached animal rights issues from an interesting angle. The cast was also pretty talented and played some pretty wacky characters, most notably Tilda Swinton as the head of this meat production company who is just very zany and also kind of menacing.
10 years in planning, on the cusp of a product that will feed millions. And what happens? That farmer growth is going to destroy us.
Number 9, Logan. So, around the time this came out, it seemed that X-Men had run its course and there really wasn't much left to do with the property except maybe give it 10 years before some other director besides Bryan Singer tries to revive the characters. Out of nowhere came a movie that seamlessly blended noir, westerns, post-apocalyptic movies, superhero movies into one crazy ass picture and blew everyone's fucking minds. Surprisingly, Wolverine makes a pretty good father figure. You wouldn't expect it because he's so busy cutting motherfuckers up with his fucking claws, but he actually was a good guy for the most part. Not many superhero movies can elicit that kind of emotional response. Most of them are just there to punch bad guys, kiss damsels, and knock countless amounts of buildings over, causing seemingly limitless civilian casualties. Oh wait, I'm just thinking of Batman vs. Superman and Man of Steel. Oh, I'm gonna erase those from my mind. Neo. Number 8, Coco. Pixar is known for making some great family-friendly classics that would also stand on their own as masterpieces. It's not just kids movies, adults can enjoy them by themselves too. I've enjoyed plenty by myself and I'm never gonna fucking have kids, fuck that. Anyway, Pixar hasn't let us down much in the past, besides the Cars franchise.
I hereby dub thee Sir Tomato.
But no one's perfect. Back to the point. Coco. It managed to cover cultural ground that Pixar previously hadn't managed to handle in any capacity whatsoever by setting the story in Mexico. It was nice having some non-white, non-inanimate object characters taking center stage for a change. Like the best movies from this production company, Coco sucker punches you right in the feels. It even managed to throw some narrative curveballs that caught me off guard, gave me some twists that would make M. Night Shyamalan blush with shame. The only thing left that I have to say about this movie is, remember me, though I have to say goodbye, remember me. Don't let it make you cry, for even... You get it. Number 7, Star Wars: The Last Jedi. This film had a very divisive release. There were two camps with, sub-camps within. Loved it, fucking hated it. I would say I'm in the loved it crowd. I don't worship it. I don't think it's flawless. I think the Porgs are a very transparent marketing scheme, though they're still admittedly adorable. The film, I recognize, has its flaws, like flying space Leia. But it doesn't deserve the hate it gets from the hate camp. Those folks either see it as something that isn't truly Star Wars. It doesn't live up to the franchise. They say it even falls short of the prequels, which is just, that doesn't make any fucking sense. Of course, there's also the men's rights activist and the racist who boycotted The Force Awakens because there was a black guy that was the main character, and because it was like a feminazi movie, and oh, women in positions of power is scary, oh! With Force Awakens, it felt a lot more formulaic, and that's, I think, part of the reason why people may like it more, but I like kind of throwing away formula once in a while and mixing things up, and this did a very good job mixing things up. Also, how can I forget Thick Kylo, thick with 2 C's, mad thick, mad swole. Number 6, It. Fuck, man, this fucking movie, woo, it was what horror should aspire to be. There are people like horror aficionados that considered it slow and long. They're just like, oh, it's boring, and it's just like, go back to fucking Friday the 13th and just watch Jason slash up teenagers and let everyone else fucking enjoy a good ass movie. I've been waiting for a horror movie that wasn't just like a horror comedy like, you know, Cabin in the Woods or Shaun of the Dead, but like a legitimate horror film that has real scares, and this was just what I was hoping for. And it also still had jokes in it, while still maintaining its horror vibe.
Go blow your dad, you mullet-wearing asshole!
I'm hoping future horror screenwriters that are big in the business take note of all the successes of this and what worked from it. When the critics say it was long, that is true. It was 2 hours, 50 minutes, which is pretty lengthy for a horror movie. But I think it worked because it is like an epic, and it has large scope to it, similar to Stephen King's other classic story, The Shining. When I say other, I don't mean his only other one, he's got a lot. And this did a lot of world building in the whole Stephen King universe that I hope is expanded upon, not only in It Part 2, which is coming out, I think, in 2019, but future Stephen King movies like The Stand, and maybe if they do The Dark Tower right this time, that it's something that you want to see stretched out into a whole thing, like a Star Wars franchise, but for Stephen King stories. What was special about it is that the movie was a horror film with heart, which you rarely see because horror writers don't like to make you feel for the main characters. They like to make you hate the main characters. So you get a feeling of catharsis when the killer stabs them, or rips their head off, or chops their legs off and beats them to death with them. Here, you care about the kids. You care that they don't get eaten by Pennywise, everyone's favorite clown since John Wayne Gacy. Andy Muschietti, or Muschietti, it's Italian, I don't fucking know. And, you know, his screenwriters did a great job adapting a Stephen King classic. I'm just really glad they left out the part in the books where the kids have graphic sex with each other in a sewer, because that would be illegal to film, first of all, and secondly, that would make me more uncomfortable than the idea of a clown that eats children. Number 5, 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri. Now, with a title like that, I don't know what first came to your mind when you heard it, but I had the advantage of knowing the writer-director's previous work, so I know what his deal is. He likes to fuck with audience expectations and mess with people, so of course he'd come up with the blandest, most misleading title possible. Like with a title like that, You wouldn't think like police corruption, racial tension, violence, dark comedy, but this had like all those things. Martin McDonagh, who's my favorite playwright, has done 2 movies before this, which are In Bruges and Seven Psychopaths, both of which were great, but this I think is his #1, and I think a lot of people realize that because it's been winning awards and getting all sorts of accolades. Now, usually his movies have a high body count, and in this he kind of held back a bit, and I'm not sure if he wanted it to be easier for the Academy to consume, or if he just felt like doing something different, but I thought it worked quite well. It was more dramatic and realistic than his other movies that were more like crazy violent.
This reporter, for one, hopes this finally puts an end to the strange saga of the 3 billboards outside.
Then put an end to shit, you fucking retard. This is just a fucking start. Why don't you put that on your Good Morning Missouri fucking wake-up broadcast, bitch?
#4, The Shape of Water. If I were to name my top 3 directors, I'd say Stanley Kubrick, Paul Thomas Anderson, and Guillermo del Toro. Ever since I saw Hellboy years back, I knew there was something special about this cuddly Totoro-looking fella. Del Toro has a creativity and imagination when it comes to fantasy and the creatures within it that you don't normally see in film. You'd imagine it's more reserved for literature and like comic books. But he brings it about in a way that feels natural to him. When I heard his next project was a romance about a merman set in the Cold War, I was like, okay, well, he could do no wrong in my eyes, so bring it on. And of course he delivered. There were even a few moments that managed to squeeze a few tears out of me, which is quite a feat to get anything out of my cold, dusty heart. But of course with Guillermo, he can do that very easily. Doug Jones, who always plays creatures in Del Toro movies, did a great job as the fish man, and Sally Hawkins did a great job as the mute janitor who falls in love with the fish man and wants to free him from captivity. Michael Shannon did great as a hateful, Bible-thumping, jingoish shitbag, and Richard Jenkins as the mute woman's lonely hermit neighbor who loves film also did a lovely job. Also Octavia Spencer and Michael Stuhlbarg and just fucking everybody did fantastic. And also, who doesn't want to see a fish man get it on? Am I right? Yeah, fist bump. You can't fist bump me, you're not here. #3, Phantom Thread. I love Paul Thomas Anderson. My favorite film of all time is Boogie Nights, which my mother still rolls her eyes at me for because of it's a movie about porn and she can't sit through it comfortably. Sorry, Mom. PTA, as I call him, has made very crazy movies, stuff about men who are driven insane by their love for oil, cults that resemble Scientology, pothead detectives in Los Angeles, not to be confused with the Big Lebowski, people who fall in love while one of them fights off a corrupt phone sex operation.
Shut up! Shut the fuck up! You have no right to take me. Shut up! Will you shut up? Shut up! Shut up! Shut up! Now! Are you threatening me, Dick? Why don't you go fuck yourself?
With such stories like that, I was surprised PTA attached himself to a production with a plot that sounded as bland as a fashion designer falls in love with a random woman and they proceed to have a very unconventional relationship. With any other filmmaker, that would shoot my interest dead in the water. But with Paul Thomas Anderson, I had a feeling he had something weird up his sleeve, because he always does. And of course, I was right. I'll also say that one of my favorite actors, Daniel Day-Lewis, delivers his final performance in this film, and while that makes me a very sad little boy, what a performance to go out on, because wow, he really gave it his all, and it's not as outspoken and over the top as There Will Be Blood or Gangs of New York, but the subtle power of it really ranks it up high in terms of his best performances. And his co-star, Vicky Krieps, sorry, Mrs. Krieps or Creeps, I'm mispronouncing your name one way or another. She did a great job holding her own against such, you know, an acting giant, and she managed to dominate the screen just as much as he did. Anyway, with that, I must say adieu to Mr. Day-Lewis. Thank you for your years of dedication to your craft and delivering countless memorable characters, and someday I hope I can drink your milkshake. Number 2, Blade Runner 2049. Very rarely does a sequel come around and live up to the original. Most of them come across as derivative and repetitive. Like, we've been there, done that, seen those things, it's not necessary. The few exceptions to the rule I could think of are Godfather 2, Shrek 2, yeah. And I guess now Blade Runner 2049. How can you stand up to a sci-fi giant such as Ridley Scott's 1982 classic? I figured it wasn't possible. I figured Denis Villeneuve's attempt at it would just be pretty good or okay at worst. If it wasn't as good as the original, it got closer to that perfection than a sequel made decades later has any right to be. And the concept of artificial intelligence gaining sentience is something I always love seeing explored. Much love to Westworld. Kay's journey isn't just about unveiling a conspiracy. It's about finding purpose in his seemingly meaningless, predestined robot life. And it's a journey I really felt connected with despite not being a robot. Or am I? Beep, boop, bop, beep. Seeing Harrison Ford's perpetually angry, please stop putting me in movies face was also pleasant, and he gave a good performance even if he wouldn't let the costume designer give him anything more advanced or aesthetically pleasing than a gray t-shirt with a green coat on top. Well, we'll take what we can get. This is what all sequels should aspire to be. This and Shrek 2. Finally, best movie of the year for me. Moment of truth. Was it Lady Bird? No. Spider-Man Homecoming? No, but that was one of the movies I was considering putting on the list. Boss Baby? Huh. You're funny. You're real funny. You ready? I don't think you are. It's Get Out. Yeah. There you go. You can go home now. You've heard enough people praise this and call it a masterpiece. It's just another movie that villainizes white people. Why can't we get a break? God, Nick, why do you have to be such a leftist cock? Well, fuck you. This is my number one pick, and you're gonna fucking deal with it. So sit your ass down. I assume you're already sitting, so... Or you already clicked out of it. Either way, let's fucking get out.
Get out.
Sorry, man.
Okay.
Get out!
Yo!
Yeah!
Yo, chill, man.
Get out! Chill!
Get Out was a masterclass in horror movie tropes and structures. This was inspired by films based on Ira Levin books like The Stepford Wives and Rosemary's Baby. It captured the awkward modern form of racism that isn't as overt and blatant as the KKK or armbands with swastikas on them. Turning suburban white folks whose bigotry is more hidden into villains was a work of genius on Mr. Peele's part. As a white person, I can't speak too much on this subject, obviously, because I haven't been through it. But I am woke enough to recognize the seriousness of all these cultural problems that Jordan Peele handles in his movie. He really nailed it on the head, and you can see why, because he's been around these neoliberal schlubs that suck up to black folks to try and make it seem like they're not racist and just be like, hey, Michael Jordan, hey, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, hey, Malcolm X, hey, MLK. And it's just like, you're trying too hard, cut it out. Anyone can see through your fucking facade of fucking bullshit hiding, racism underneath. And he lampooned that shit hardcore. I like to think I never talked like that around black friends and acquaintances, but the truth is, back before I really got into cultural issues, I was probably one of those accidental racists that Peele makes fun of because of a subconsciously racist upbringing, which is none of my parents' fault, but it's just the suburban white culture we're brought up in. Before I get too deep down that philosophical rabbit hole, let's just get back to the movie. What you traditionally do in horror movies is you kind of start off with little scares here and there and you build up. And with this, the build up was fantastic. It built up gradually to like a breaking point that was just nuts, and then it was just a fucking non-stop roller coaster ride from there. And along with that, of course, the horror movie's got to have comic relief, and that came in the form of Chris's friend Rod, who works for the TSA.
I believe they've been abducting black people, brainwashing them, making them work for them as sex slaves and shit. Oh, sorry about the shit.
All I have left to say is that I hope Jordan Peele continues exploring the horror genre while also approaching these race themes that you don't get to see enough. But honestly, I'd see whatever he churns out next, whether it's horror or comedy or romance, really anything, because he's got a good thing going on creatively. So, that's my list. Hope you liked it. Did you have a different list with totally different movies? Let me know in the comments. Or, if you don't want to do that, you don't have to do that. Did you have a favorite list of movies from 1974? Put it in the comments. Do you have a list of favorite Bible verses? Put them in the comments. Again, or not. Whatever you feel like, just don't be a fucking dick in the comments. Or, don't really be a dick anywhere. Don't be a fucking dick. Anyways, until next time, love y'all. Good night. Mwah.